Hey guys, how are y'all doing? Dude, I was trying to come up with a dad joke, because I've been practicing and I couldn't come up with one, so I'm sorry to disappoint you. But anyways, guys, I love y'all. I'm so glad you're there. I miss y'all. Elaine's going to announce something big for next week, and I'm just going to say go ahead and practice because me and Randy are going to clean house.
Yeah, y'all know it's coming. Hey, we're talking tonight about doubt. Like, have you ever doubted something? Like, have you ever heard something just like so surprising that you couldn't believe it?
Yeah, you talking to me?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, like what?
Hold on, let me think of something. Something so big
Yeah.
that I doubted it.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know off the top of my head. That's crazy. I've thought, whenever I think about this question, I think about what the disciples thought about whenever somebody came out saying that Jesus rose from the dead. That's what I think about.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. We're going to talk about that tonight, actually. But I don't know if you remember this. Look at this, Kennedy. I'm about to show everybody this.
Oh, I remember that.
This is so, you're never going to believe this, guys. You're never going to believe that what this scorecard says. Y'all know what this is? It's a golf scorecard. And here's the deal. Kennedy and myself and Noah and Owen all went and played golf Sunday after church because it was Owen's birthday, and that's what he wanted to do for his birthday. So everybody first say happy birthday to Owen. Okay. So Owen and Kennedy were on a team, and then me and Noah were on a team. And I'm about to tell you guys something really shocking. None of you are going to believe it, okay?
They need to guess who won.
Yeah, first off, guess who won first? Owen and Noah. It was Owen and Kennedy versus me and Noah. How many of you think that me and Noah won? Raise your hand. That's not very many of you, and I don't like that show of hands. I don't like that. How many of you think Owen and Kennedy won? Yeah, you did. They won by a lot. They beat us by 12 strokes. And because I lost so bad, I had to tell you guys, and I had to own it in public. There's a train going by. All right, well, hey, we're about to get into the message, bud.
Okay, guys, I love y'all. Log into Randy. It's going to be great.
All right, tell him bye.
Bye.
All right, rock on. Hey, that was fun. That's one of my favorite parts of like when I get to speak when Kennedy's gone is just getting to FaceTime him with you guys. It's a ton of fun. Hey, tonight we're going to be in John chapter 20. So if you have your Bibles or your phones that have the Bible app on them, go ahead and open those up. Go to John chapter 20. And how many of you know what's coming this Sunday? What's Sunday? Easter. Yes, Easter, when we celebrate Jesus raising from the dead. How many of you know what tomorrow is? Tomorrow's not Friday, but good try. That was a very good effort. I'm very proud. What is it? Passover begins. There's a day, and I didn't know this. Did y'all know? Have y'all ever heard of the term Maundy Thursday? And I was like, why are they calling Thursday Monday? That makes no sense. It's not Monday Thursday. It's Maundy Thursday, like M-A-U-N day Thursday. You know what that day is? That's the day that Jesus is actually betrayed by Judas. Kind of a crazy day, and starts like a whole whirlwind of stuff that happens. That then on Good Friday, what happens on Good Friday? Like what, Charlie? You don't know? You don't know what happens on Good Friday? Who knows what happens on Good Friday? Somebody just give it to me. What happens? Yeah, that's the day Jesus was crucified, right? That doesn't sound very good. That sounds pretty terrible for Jesus at the time. But who is it good for? Who's it good for, right? It's us, right? It's the greatest gift we've ever been given, is Jesus sacrificing himself for us. So that happens on Good Friday, and then 3 days later, it's Sunday, and Jesus raises from the dead, which is awesome, all right? And we're going to celebrate it like crazy on Sunday. It's going to be a great day. If you have somebody that you know that needs to know who Jesus is, who needs to meet Jesus, you need to bring them to church on Sunday, all right? Do whatever you can to get them there in church. offer to give them a ride. You don't have your license yet? Offer to walk with them. I don't know. Get somebody to give you a ride and then go pick them up. All right, do whatever you can do to get them here on Sunday. Because on Sunday morning, they are going to hear the gospel. They are going to hear the good news about what Jesus Christ did for them. And so whatever you can do to get somebody here on Sunday, do it. All right, can we do that? That didn't sound like very much confidence. I'm going to need you to do better than that. All right, can we do that? Yeah. Sweet, I like it. All right. So we are going to be talking about some of the disciples today, and in John chapter 20, I'm going to kind of give you a big overview of what happens, and we're going to focus in on one disciple in particular named Thomas. And Thomas had a very specific nickname. Does anybody know what Thomas's nickname was? Not the choo-choo train. Somebody else said it. Doubting Thomas. That's right. Doubting Thomas. What do you think Thomas did that he's very famous for? He doubted. Yeah, and we're going to look at that story, and we're going to kind of see how it really isn't fair just to label one disciple doubting Thomas, but we'll get to that later. But we're going to talk about that. So we're going to do the overview. So overview of what has happened so far. We just went through Jesus was crucified. He's risen again. And then in the beginning of John chapter 20, Mary Magdalene and some other followers of Jesus, they went to the tomb and they saw that the tomb was empty, right? Jesus is gone. And so she takes off running. She goes and gets some of the disciples and she tells them what she saw at the tomb. They all go back. She's crying because they think someone had hidden the body. And so they all freak out. And so many of the disciples go and they start hiding, all right? They go into hiding because they are fearful for their lives. I mean, they just saw the guy that they spent 3 years following. They just watched him get crucified and they think that they're next, right? And you remember we talked about Peter last week, how Peter denied Jesus 3 times. And so he was scared even before Jesus had died that he was going to get lumped in. And so everybody's hiding. They're scared. They're nervous. And then Jesus just shows up in the middle of that and says, hey, peace be still. And he shows them the scars in his hands. And he shows them the scars in his feet and in his side where he was pierced. And so they all get to see Jesus except for Thomas. We don't know why he's not there, but Thomas is not there with the other disciples when Jesus shows himself to them. So I want you to think about this from Thomas's perspective for a little bit. You've watched Jesus die, okay? And I know Jesus was kind of hinting at the fact that when he died, that wasn't going to be the end of the story. But he hadn't come right out and told them hey, I'm going to be hung on that cross. And then 3 days later, I'm going to come back to life. Just hold your horses. I promise all of this is going to, he hadn't really laid it out that clearly and specifically. Okay? And so Thomas, all he knows is that he watched the guy that he followed for 3 years. He watched that guy die. And so he's probably thinking, what have I done for the last 3 years of my life? I've just thrown it away following this dude who now he's dead. Now what? Now what do I do? What, am I going to get killed for following him? This sounds like a pretty bad deal. And so Thomas is not there. And so when we get to this point in John chapter 20 at the end, we're going to go to verse 24, all right? So this is where we're going to pick up the story of doubting Thomas, and we're going to read it. We're going to read all the way through verse 29, all right? And so it says this. It says, now Thomas, one of the 12, called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, we have seen the Lord. But he said to them, unless I see in his hands the mark of the nails, and place my finger into the mark of the nails, and place my hand into his side, I will never believe. Now, again, I'm going to hit the pause button right there. If you saw someone die, how many of you have ever been to a funeral? Anybody ever been to a funeral? Okay. You go, and have you ever been to a funeral where the casket is open? Right? Sometimes they have it closed, sometimes they have it open. And so you've seen, in fact, the last one that I went to was an open casket. And so I'm looking at this person whom I loved dearly, and they're dead. And I know they're not coming back, right? And if I heard that person had come back to life, I'm thinking I would have a pretty hard time believing it too, right? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but do you know anybody who's come back from the dead? Like zero, right? I mean, we read about it in the Bible, but we personally know 0 people who were dead for 3 days and then came back to life. All right? I can confidently say we know 0 people. Okay? So this is where Thomas is at. He's like, look, unless I'm able to feel it, like unless I'm able to put my finger right where those nails were, I'm not going to believe it. All right? And so 8 days later, everybody say 8 days later, his disciples were inside again, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." And then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands, and put out your hand and place it in my side. Do not disbelieve, but believe." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." So this is the whole story where Thomas gets his nickname, Doubting Thomas. Because he said, I will never believe, right? Unless I can put my hands where those nails were, I will never believe. But what we see here in this story is like the first kind of like main point I really want you to get. And it's this, is that Jesus can handle our doubts. Jesus can handle our doubts. Because even though Thomas was very doubtful of what had happened, right? I will never believe unless I put my fingers where those nails were. He said that, but because he had seen Jesus die. In his mind, it was game over. But then he gets this response from his friends like, no, Jesus is back. And all he wants is for them to prove it, right? You ever been in a spot where you've just needed somebody to prove something to you? Yeah? I know, it's like, you know, it's like when you come across something that is like, you think it's like too good to be true, too unbelievable. You're like, no, you're going to have to prove that to me. I once had a friend who actually used to work here. He told us that he could throw a football 80 yards in the air. Okay, how many football players? How many we got? How many football players? Even those of you with a rocket arm, what is the farthest that you can throw a football? 40? What do you think? 35 maybe? Yeah, okay. So this guy told us he could throw a football 80 yards in the air. And so you know what we said to him? We said, prove it, right? And I actually happened to have a football in my car at that time. And I said, you know what? I've got a football. Why don't we go outside right now and throw just to see how far you can throw a football? And I'm telling you, I didn't get from here to like the back of that wall, and he couldn't get it there. Like, it was pathetic. Maybe that's maybe an exaggeration. But we were telling, like, look, you're going to have to prove it to me. This is way unbelievable. And also, just for the record, this guy, not very athletic. So we kind of all just knew he was full of it, but man, did he took it to the end. I got to give him credit for that. But sometimes you just need like proof. Something's too unbelievable. And I think in this case, like having someone who was dead, who everybody's saying is like, no, he's not dead. I think that is like, yeah, you're going to have to prove it to me. All right. And that's where Thomas is at. But when Jesus comes back, all right, when the disciples are together, they're in a locked room, and Jesus comes back in to the room. He says, peace be with you. I want you to see that Jesus responds with compassion and not shame here. Like, he doesn't just call out Thomas and say, Thomas, you're a big-time doubter. Everyone should now call you Doubting Thomas. Like, Jesus didn't give him that nickname. Instead, Jesus shows us in this story that he can handle our doubts, and he isn't afraid of him. And that when we lack faith, that we can come to God and ask for help. You know, there's another story in the Bible in the book of Mark, in Mark 9, where a guy comes and says that, hey, my daughter needs healed. And he says that, Jesus, if you'll just even say the words, if you'll even just say the words, I know she can be healed. And Jesus responds to him and says, do you believe that I can do it? And he says, I believe, help my unbelief. Because if you've got like, you got a family member who's sick, and you know someone who can He can heal him. If you just put yourself in that guy's shoes, it's pretty outrageous to think that someone who is far away from that person could just say, yep, I can heal him from here with just a word. You would have like, yeah, okay, I believe you, but there's also some doubt there. And Jesus doesn't chastise that guy. He doesn't yell at that guy for saying like, yeah, I believe, but I'm still having some problems with it. Instead, Jesus says, because of your faith, like, I will do it. And he meets that guy in his doubts. See, Jesus knows us. He knows you inside and out, and he knows that each one of us are going to have doubts in our lives. We're going to have times where we lack a little bit of faith, where we have questions about God. Like, we're all going to have those times, and Jesus is not mad at you for having those doubts. In fact, the next big point I want you to get is that Jesus welcomes your doubts. He welcomes your doubts. And I want you to like focus in. I want you to look really close at verse 27. All right, because what did Jesus say when he saw Thomas? What did he say to him? What were his words? Somebody just say it. Right. Again, he doesn't yell at Thomas. What he does is he says, hey, Thomas, come here. He knew exactly what Thomas needed, right? What did Thomas say that he would not believe until he could do what? Right? Until he could put his fingers there. And what is Jesus' first words to him? Hey, Thomas, put your fingers here. Feel the scars in my hand. Like, he didn't get mad at him. He welcomed it. He walked right into it and said, Thomas, I know exactly what it is that you need. And I'm here for it. And then he tells him, do not disbelieve, but believe. And I love that he didn't wait for like anybody to say anything. He just kind of shows up and he went straight to Thomas and did that exact thing that he needed in that moment. Now, the dangerous thing in this is when I give a message like this, I'm sure some of you guys are probably like thinking like, man, I get what you're saying about Jesus. I get that he doesn't get mad and that he welcomes it, but I'm still waiting on Jesus to show up in this thing in my life. Like, I have some serious doubts right now. And I would just tell you that Jesus has his own timing. Like, God has his own timing. Do you remember, how many of you remember in this passage earlier, you can totally cheat, go back and look in the passage if you don't remember. How many days was it from when the disciples told Thomas about Jesus to when Jesus showed up to Thomas? 8 days, right? So 8 more days of Thomas thinking that he is running for his life, right? That he has to hide, that he has to like avoid people before he gets found out to be a disciple. Right? So he is in hiding still, wondering what to do with his life. 8 days. And I find it interesting that Jesus didn't come sooner than that. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I start freaking out after a couple of hours if something isn't going the way that I think it should go. And that might even be generous. Sometimes it's a couple of minutes, let's be honest. Right? We have something happen to us, something that kind of rocks our world, and it's like, oh my goodness, the world is ending. I don't know, God doesn't even love me, he doesn't care. And then our whole world comes crashing down and we're just left with like, now what? And Jesus lets this go on for 8 days before he comes to Thomas. And I just want to tell you that Jesus, just because his timing is his own, does not mean that he is not there and walking with you. All right? And so I've got 3 things for you real quick before we're done that I want you to do when we have doubts, all right? 3 things. Here we go. First one, I want you to be honest with God about your doubts. Okay? Be honest with God with your doubts. And here's why. He already knows. You're not hiding it from him. You ever been around like a little kid who's like obviously lied about something? I want to tell a story about myself, and I wish I had the picture for it to show you. I one time when I was little, like Evan's age, my little guy Evan, he's 4. I had asked my mom and dad at some point for ice cream or a popsicle or something, and they had told me no, that it would ruin my supper. How many of you have ever heard that line before? It'll ruin your supper. All right. So that's what my parents had told me. Well, I had gone outside to play, and my next door neighbor was a really cool guy. His name was Barry, and Barry was outside mowing his lawn or doing something. I don't remember, but he came over the fence. He would always like tell us hi and wave to us, and he had a freezer. Guess what it had in it? Ice cream and popsicles, right? This in particular day, he had fudgesicles. You all know what those are? It's basically just frozen chocolate on a stick. It's wonderful. Well, he offered one to me. And did I tell Barry? No, my parents told me no, that it would ruin my supper. Is that what I said to Barry? No, I told him, yes, I absolutely want a fudgesicle. And so I ate that fudgesicle while I was outside, and then I went inside. Now, remember, I was 4. And so the evidence of the fudgesicle was all over my face. It was everywhere. And my mother, she said, did you eat ice cream? What do you think I told my mother? Did I fess up? No. I said, no, I did not have ice cream. Did she believe me? No. Why? Right. Clear evidence all over my face, right? Okay, here's the point I'm getting at. Does God know everything? Did he create everything? Does he know how many hairs are on your head? Does he know your thoughts right now? Does God know if you have doubts? 100%. So are we hiding anything from God by not coming to God with our doubts? No. He already knows. He already knows. And he still wants you to come with him because remember, and you've probably heard this in church, that God is not completely, like he is not, it's not all about compliance for God. It's not just about following rules. He wants a relationship with you. He is a loving father who wants you to come to him with everything, and that means your doubts too. Second thing, so I want you to look for evidence. So first is be honest with your doubts. Second, look for evidence, okay? Look for evidence. And by that, I mean, like when you have a doubt, if God is really there, if he is really active, does God really love me? Did Jesus really die for me? I want you to look for the times in your life where you've seen God move. And I'm just going to give you one from this story that you probably missed, all right? Let's go back a couple of verses, like 8 days later, all right? So verse 26, if you've still got it pulled open. Verse 26, 8 days later, his disciples were inside again, and Thomas was with them. All right, so you got this. They are all inside. Everybody got it? Everybody say inside. What are the next 5 words? Although the doors were what? Locked. The door was locked. I lost my place. Doors were locked. Jesus came and stood among them. Jesus walked through a wall, guys. Like, you get that, right? That's what he's saying here. The door's closed, it's locked. He didn't just open the doorknob and walk himself in. No, he walked through the wall and was just there. Like Jesus was not there, all of a sudden he was there. Right? You think that one would have been enough for Thomas, right? Right? Like Jesus just does like a magic act, like, holy smokes, he just appeared out of nowhere. Woo! People don't do that, guys. This is very David Copperfield or like David Blaine. Y'all even know who that is? You don't even know who those people are? Oh yeah, they're just famous musicians or magicians. I'm old. That's what it is. Okay, I'm old. The point is, this is pre like any of that kind of stuff. Jesus just shows up. You think that would have been enough, but no, Jesus instead, he gives Thomas the exact evidence that he was looking for. And I just want you, when you have times in your life where you don't understand what's going on and you have those doubts, I want you to go back to all of the times that you can see in your life where God has been there walking with you. And then lastly, so we're going to be honest, we're going to look for evidence. And then third is you're going to take a step of faith. You're going to take a step of faith. Because Jesus ends this little passage in verse 29 that says, have you believed because you have seen me? Which the obvious answer is like, well, yeah, Jesus, I believe because you showed me. You let me feel the marks in your hands. And Jesus kind of goes a step further with him and says, blessed are those who have not seen and yet believed. Because have any of you physically seen Jesus, the person? Nope. Until we get to heaven one day, are we ever going to be able to feel the nail-scarred hands? No, we're not. You're never going to be able to like talk to a physical manifestation of Jesus until you get to see him face to face in heaven one day. And so this whole believing in Jesus, this whole walking with God takes a level of faith. And I know that no matter how much you look back at your life and you see God at work, you're going to have times then again where you doubt. And I want you in those times where it's hard to believe, when it's hard to trust God, I want you just to like actually even just say these words out loud. Sometimes it helps. Jesus, I still believe. I know it's hard, but Jesus, I still believe you, or I still trust you. And I don't know if that like really does anything, but I know it just helps me remember that I serve a God and that I follow a God who not only is there with me, but wants to walk through every step of life with me. And he wants to guide me. And he wants that for you too. And he wants that for you too. So whenever you have your doubts, we're going to be honest with them. We're going to then go look for evidence. Remember all the ways that God has blessed us in the past. Remember where he's been at work. And then we're going to take that step of faith that just says, even though right now it's hard to trust you, it's hard to believe, I'm going to do it anyway. All right? Let's bow our heads and pray. God, thank you so much that when it's hard, that you don't just beat us over the heads with our doubt, or you don't get mad, you don't take it out on us. God, instead, you meet us where we're at, and you help guide us through each and every single one of those next steps. God, I pray that you would just not make it easy on us, but Lord, just in these moments where we're doubting, would you just, especially if there's anybody here tonight that's just really needing to know that you're there, God, would you just help them to feel that tonight? Would you help them be able to see you at work in their life? God, I'm asking that you would just show up for them in a big way, that they'd be able to see the evidence. God, in these moments where it's hard to believe, would you just give us the faith? I echo the prayer of the man in Mark 9, where he says, Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief. God, help us all when we don't believe. Help us when we have doubts. Help us when it's hard to trust. God, we are so grateful that you were there for us, that you never leave us and you never forsake us. We love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.